All right, I've created a quick model to go over the process of digestion and explain kind of the basics of this biological process. So, a food particle enters the mouth and is chewed by your 32 teeth, which serve as a kind of form of mechanical digestion in which food is physically separated but not chemically changed into smaller bits, which aids in digestion later. However, the mouth also has chemical digestion in which salivary glands secrete amylase, which is an enzyme that breaks down amylose sugars, and that begins right in the mouth. So a bolus, a chunk of food, saturated in amylase, enters the pharynx and goes through this valve-like system known as the epiglottis, in which a flap controls which of the two tubes, being the trachea and the esophagus, either food or air goes down, and is kind of controlled by the swallowing operation to ensure that everything goes to its right place. So as the food enters the esophagus, it moves down this organ through muscles that contract in this wave-like formation known as peristalsis. Sorry, and as the food enters the cardiac orifice from the esophagus, it then goes into the stomach. The stomach is concentrated heavily with hydrochloric acid caused by reverse ATP synthase pumping out hydrogen protons into the stomach to allow that pH to lower. So sometimes this heavy acid concentration can spill over into the pyloric and the cardiac orifices to cause what we now know as heartburn. Mechanical digestion by this acid continues with churning in the acid again to further digestion. As food is modified, it is now known as chyme after it leaves the stomach. And so briefly, just the liver, among detoxifying your blood, creates bile, which aids in the emulsification. It's stored in the gallbladder, aids in the emulsification of fats, and mechanical digestion further, which combines with the chyme to aid in digestion. The pancreas is a really important organelle for digestion. There are lipases stored, more amylases, as you can see here. There's pancreatic juice. There's, I don't have cards for these, but there are nucleases and proteases that further the chemical breakdown of food through the digestive system. You also have bicarbonate, which serves to neutralize the stomach acids that possibly spill over and are still left in the food particles themselves. Fiber serves as a lubrication. This is the beginning of the small intestinal system, and so that aids in the movement of the food particles through the system. We already went over emulsification through the liver, the gallbladder, the combination with chyme, and the furthering of digestion here. So this part of the small intestine is where the absorption of monosaccharides, nucleotides, and amino acids occurs, which is very important for, getting those, monosaccharides and other basic needs for cells to the cells, and is really the entire purpose of digestion. So as the food continues on into the large intestine, in which water absorption occurs, because as the water, has moved through this process, or the food has moved through this process, it's heavily saturated with liquid, and so the large intestine tends to remove a lot of that. What's important to note about this organ is that it has a very specific microbiome, also the stomach, small intestines, but also the large intestine, in which bacterium that aid in the process of digestion, such as E. coli, are really important, and scientists are just kind of discovering that in recent years. So as the food particle has now been, mostly digested, its substances extracted, what's important in it through this process, and enters the rectum and furthers into the anus, where it exits as feces. And so that's kind of the start to finish from an apple to that. So I hope I pretty well went over digestion briefly, and thank you.